With one search early last year, Attorney General Kamala Harris upended the story state regulators and a utility were telling consumers. The California Public Utilities Commission and Southern California Edison had claimed a deal that left ratepayers with a $3.3 billion bill for San Onofre's closure was the product of hard-fought negotiations between ratepayer advocates and the power company. But when Harris secured a search warrant for the La Cañada Flint Ridge home of former PUC President Michael Peavy, a different story emerged. Investigators found handwritten notes that showed Peavy had met secretly with an Edison executive in Poland. There, they came up with a framework for a San Onofre settlement that closely resembled the final agreement.
That was one of the most remarkable pieces of investigative work that I've ever seen in the last 40 years.
It was the kind of work that San Diego consumer attorney Mike Aguirre says makes people fall in love with their leaders. But he contends Harris is now jilting her constituents.
And there was no follow-up.
6 months after Harris's investigators raided Peavy's house, the Attorney General obtained another search warrant. This time, it was for the centers of power in the San Onofre case, Edison, and the offices of state regulators. But Harris's investigators never went in. Inexplicably, they handed the warrant to both Edison and the PUC, asking them to turn over all documents and communications related to the San Onofre settlement. Aguirre, who is a former federal prosecutor, called that approach half-hearted.
You don't drop it off on the front door and say, hey, gee, send me your records. That's the whole point of a search warrant, is that you go in and you execute the search warrant and you seize the records because you're concerned that they're going to disappear.
He argues using the full power of the search warrant is essential if the public is ever to get justice from state regulators and Edison.
There's just so much momentum behind the unlawful conduct that the search warrant is really the only device that you can use unless you have some sort of wiretap.
So far, Edison has turned over some records to the Attorney General, but the PUC has withheld many of the documents, alleging limited resources and claiming they are privileged. Harris has not challenged the PUC's privilege assertion. Former San Diego federal prosecutor Jason Forge says the Attorney General would likely prevail if she did.
The PUC is the state, and so if the PUC is the state, so the state is the client, well, that's who controls the privilege. That's who is capable of waiving it. And so the person at the top of the state is Governor Brown, and he could waive the privilege.
But Governor Brown's own office has exchanged emails with the PUC discussing San Onofre. The PUC is refusing to release those emails. The only person who has pushed the agency to make the communications public is Aguirre, not Harris. Aguirre was also the one who asked for a judge to be removed from the case because he'd gone to law school with Governor Brown. Aguirre says it's puzzling that Attorney General Harris hasn't made such efforts.
She has no presence. She has no involvement. She has no leadership. You have no sense of her being out there on the front, saying, we're charging forward to do what's right.
Harris has also remained silent on another part of the case. The PUC's law firm is representing both the agency and its employees. Forge says the practice is frowned upon by prosecutors because it intimidates potential whistleblowers.
They know the same person representing them is representing their supervisor and is representing their supervisor's supervisor.
Harris could ask a court to require the PUC to retain separate counsel. She has not done so. Consumer advocate Charles Langley believes the politics of Harris's Senate bid is influencing her investigation into San Onofre.
This is a scandal that very likely will implicate Governor Jerry Brown, a powerful Democrat. We've got a scandal that will implicate actually Michael Peavy, who is accused, a very powerful Democrat, and Michael Peavy's wife is an elected, powerful Democrat. So this is really going up against the Democratic Party system here, and I think it's very distressing to her when she's considering a Senate run to be going up against some of the state's most powerful Democrats.
Harris has a record fighting white-collar crime as Attorney General. She set up a mortgage fraud task force, and she obtained $18 billion from the nation's biggest banks for their role in the foreclosure crisis. She is also investigating whether ExxonMobil misled the public and shareholders on what it knew about climate change and whether that amounts to securities fraud. But the Attorney General's office declined to answer any questions about the inquiry into the San Onofre settlement. A spokesman says the reason is to protect the integrity of Harris's investigation. Amita Sharma, KPBS News.